Welcome back, and joining us, John Moore from the LibertyMan.com, thelibertyman.com, and Ann Morrison, our scientist, from Defense for You, the number for you.com. Now,
hello,
John,
Dr. Bill.
Yeah, so Ann and John, we have everybody. I get so many questions now about a couple of different topics. The first one, which is on the tip of everybody's tongue, is Ebola. And I hear a lot of what I call so-called journalists trying to perceive if they can understand this. We got into a little dialogue last night when I was on the Wrench program, because I'm on every second hour Thursdays. And yesterday's first hour, I called for callers, but I didn't get any because I think they were spellbound by me reviewing all the literature on Ebola. Ebola is a Department of Defense patented bioweapon. That's the first thing we need to start off. Second is we have ZMapp, which is a company out of San Diego making this genetically engineered, grown in tobacco in Kentucky, sera that actually binds to the virus, and the doctor and nurse that received the ZMapp actually are getting better. So it doesn't mean Big Pharma can't make things that make you better, but it may cost you $20,000, especially because it's not ramped up to production, and you may have to get in a special clinical trial because it's not FDA approved or the fatal drug to allow people. Remember, FDA is the gatekeepers to make sure if a big pharmaceutical company buys out the company that makes ZMapp, they're going to make billions and maybe many billions of dollars on this, because people are going to say, I'll mortgage my home to get the sera if the thing starts making people drop like flies. They don't need to. This is designed to bring about medical martial law, and if you don't think that the government is ready, just drooling, to set up a globalist empire based on medical disaster, you better think twice. And if you think we're crazy, just read all the headlines in the news. They're trying to manipulate the public by terrorizing you with something that could be dealt with simple, we call reverse protection protocols, which I reviewed over and over again ad nauseum here on exactly what we need to do. John, what are you hearing about Ebola and about all the other things? We've got the war in the Middle East. We've got Ukraine, which is literally blowing up to the point where the Russians are saying, make a move, like make my day hairy. Remember Dirty Harry? Dirty Harry, right. And Russia's basically saying this Dirty Harry move, like, move in NATO troops and we're going to nuke your cities. That's what they're saying. They've tried to drop the dead hand maneuver last week that Putin signed, which means if there's NATO troops move in, U.S. cities are going to go on nuclear fire. They're going to be incinerated. And there's nothing we can do to stop them from doing it if we are stupid enough to start a war with Russia. Right. Russia will nuke us because they don't have a conventional navy large enough to handle ours, or a conventional air force, or the ability to project power. But they can fry every square inch of the United States and our allies into incineration. There's not a damn thing we can do to stop it.
Right. Well, Doctor, I just got an update from a private source just a couple of hours ago, and I was sworn to not identify these three Fortune 500 agricultural companies. Keeping in mind, Fortune 500 companies don't get their news from CNN or the Wall Street Journal. They get it from their own private, confidential, trusted sources.
In the Congress and Senate, by the way, I found out, listen to this, if you want to hear a joke, and this is true, though, that Mr. Slim, which is the richest man in Mexico, he's Lebanese, Mexican, he and three Americans, two of them are U.S. Congress people, own the death train that travels from Guatemala to the Rio Grande River. What do you think of that?
Well, somehow that
doesn't
surprise me. Yeah. Somehow that does not surprise me.
It doesn't surprise you. Another shocking thing from the bowels of Hades. Okay. So anyway, what are they saying? What are these guys saying about...
This is from the boardrooms of these three Fortune 500 agricultural companies. They're, quote-unquote, scared to death that President Putin is being put in a box where he feels he has no alternative except to initiate a first strike against the United States.
Right.
That's the information I got just 2 hours ago.
That makes total sense, yeah.
In addition, we just got word also about an hour ago that the Colorado National Guard and Army Reserve are all being reserved chemical and biological equipment ASAP.
Right. Well, of course, you know that a lot of the biological experiments, like Operation Top Off and Dark Winter, which were started first in the United States, I was the point man under Reserve Admiral Hughes in the 90s, and that the Center for Testing and Recording Data on the population response to these tests, because remember, Ebola, I think, is just a big test. If they would quarantine anybody coming from a country of origin for 1 month and draw sera and do a whole series of other things I mentioned. And we would block anybody coming from these countries through airports and whatever, and we would do studies to see if the virus persisted on dry surfaces. We could prevent the Ebola from coming here or spreading anywhere. I've heard people make misstatements about, and I'm not going to mention who did it or what show, but people have made misstatements they need to go to a class 4 negative pressure installation. There's no such thing. There are highly secure biological facilities where people walk around in spacesuits, not the stupid things the doctors wear in the operating room. We're talking about total sealed, pressurized suits that will not allow a molecule of air go through there except through a separate air circulation system. And they have ultraviolet light curtains, ozone. They have all kinds of things to absolutely prevent the virus from escaping, including air filtration systems that incinerate virus through the air filters. None of those things are available in regular hospitals. They're only in highly secure units and special universities, and they need to go to those places. The problem is that they put them through a commercial airliner. They put them through any means of getting here where they can shed virus for, say, the last week of their illness before they go south and start to die. And the death rate's anywhere from 45 to 90%. Treated in a Western hospital is probably more like 45%, especially if they get that ZMAP. But it's very expensive. They've only got to ramp up to 100 doses. If they, quote, tried to ramp up to, say, 1 million or 10 million doses, it'll take 6 months to a year. And at the exponential explosion of Ebola, by this fall, the number of cases is going to be catastrophic, which means we're almost certainly looking at the closure of airports, international commerce, and medical martial law, with the World Health Organization and the United Nations declaring a world state of emergency, pandemic emergency. That's where I see this going.
Well, Doctor, it easily could go that way.
Well, there's nothing I can tell that would stop it from doing it. By the way, it's a fraction of the deadliness of a weaponized swine or avian flu or H7N9, because if it has all 5 receptor binding domain genes, the rate of transfer of a H7N9 flu, which replicates faster than any other flu virus in history, will be 300 to 400 times more likely to give you an infection if someone coughs 200 yards away than Ebola. The problem with Ebola is stupid public health measures, no containment, no separate transport because they're going to go through commercial airliners. They're going to try to stop flights directly from Sierra Leone to, say, Chicago, but they're not going to, if they go through an alternate airport or if they come in a boat or some other way when they're still shedding for the last week or so of their illness before they get violently sick. There's no public health measures to stop that. So I don't see any way that they're not going to stop a large enough number of cases that are going to freak out the public. And once people outside these hospitals start to get sick, which I think is likely to happen, it won't be big numbers either. It'll be small numbers, but it'll be numbers that will increase exponentially, but not as fast as Africa because they have different circumstances. What's your opinion, Ann? Because I think this is going to take a while to percolate, just like the beta coronavirus 2, which they tried to say to WHO that it's kind of gone away, which is a pile of garbage. I think that these diseases are going to continue percolating, and it won't really spike here in America for maybe a year or more. But in Africa, it's probably been percolating for 3 or 4 years, and now it's going to really rip right across the country there, and it'll jam off any kind of commerce or flights out of Africa. It's going to really hurt them bad.
Well, I think I think this news that John mentioned, that the Colorado National Guard and the military up there are being issued chemical and biological weapon suits or equipment,
they're getting ready.
Indicates that they're probably going to be deployed as a barrier to Ebola spreading out of North Carolina.
Well, the real barrier comes is if someone is detected as, say, a missionary, they need to send up separate flights in a proper biohazard aircraft. Aircraft has to be prepped up to be separate air systems between the flight compartment and the back compartments. They need to have ways of isolating the person in the plane, almost like an isolation chamber. I don't see any moves whatsoever that our government's deciding to do that, to have separate air flights, emergency flights, with a proper prepped up plane. They're letting them come over here in commercial airliners or whatever. It's going to be catastrophic. And it won't be as bad as an avian swine flu, but it's going to scare the heck out of the public, and it will kill a lot of people. Welcome back. And so, Ann, I want to hear your response. You mentioned a few things on the break there that I think are important about the Ebola. We mentioned, of course, a couple of things are over on the newsletter from Joel Skousen, and I think a couple of statements he makes are pretty poignant. It talks about the U.S. Center for Disease Control holds the patent since 2010. We know that, the various policy departments, like people like Ted Turner, other comments made by other people, these are pretty horrendous comments. Zbigniew Brzezinski says it's easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people recently in his report, November 17th, 2008, book by Daniel Estulin, The True Story of the Bilderberger Group. We have to understand this, and this is for people out there that are new to the show that think that we're wacky or we're out of our minds, whatever. And no, we're not. We're actually bold enough and have the guts enough that we're actually going to tell the truth. And I recently saw a show with my daughter on Wednesday night and my wife, because it's it's a spoof on Star Trek, etc. It's called Guardians of the Galaxy. But the fact is, they mix kind of really serious stuff with really funny, kind of off-the-top stuff. The fact is, the universe that we live in, the world we live in, is a heck of a lot more evil, that it scares the hell out of billionaires and military personnel and people in government that, although they may be in the CIA, NSA, or the military branches, they're completely freaked out by what's going on because they know it's not good for anybody, including those who are just plain greedy. And this is dangerous. What we're doing right now, especially with Ebola, no public health measures, if we had something really dangerous like H7N9 that can all of a sudden start really spreading 200 or 300 times more easily, you're going to kill billions with the stupid policies we have now. But they're just itching to declare medical martial law. And I think that we are on the edge of a real catastrophe that's manufactured. I think that we're real close to something very, very bad.
Well, the Ebola virus is very fragile.
Right.
It doesn't exist outside the body. It's kind of like HIV.
Right.
Yeah, it might be spread by droplets, but it takes a long time to do that. Greater than 15 minutes in close contact in a conversation.
No, we did have a report.
Killed by chlorinated water. Now,
we did have a report.
Switched over our public water system here to the chloramines, so we no longer have chlorinated water. We have ammonia water. So you have to make your own chlorinated water, and so for a gallon, you put in about 2 tablespoons of chlorine, and that's all you need in order to kill the virus.
You're better off with Nutrimedical, because Nutrimedical is biologically non-toxic. Chlorine blocks your thyroid, actually takes T4 and makes a T, instead of T4, which is T4I, which means 4 iodines off the molecule, or T3, it actually turns it into TCl, which is basically a trichlorinated or tetrafluorinated chlorinated compound, which is toxic to the mitochondria. So you want to use Nutrimedical, and you can, if you simply have a whole house system and then you put it in your water, you're just not going to get infected. That's why we have our Ebola protection kit, which includes Nutrimedical, Allison Med, Silver 100, and Power C+, and NutriDefense, which will block all known viral pathogens by destroying the viral capsid. So there's just no excuse for us panicking over this. But, of course, the government wants you to panic because ultimately they like to back you into accepting a chip for tracking to make sure you're not an enemy combatant. And this is something they tried to do down in Haiti, where they actually were giving people a chip to track them down their GPS coordinates, and then they would, quote, they would be able to track them as if they gave them a treatment like a vaccine or treatment. And then they would say, okay, you're not an enemy combatant, and if you're not going to cooperate, they're going to, co-house you in a place where someone who could have an actual radiological or biological weapon exposure and have the actual virus, they're going to increase your chances of actually getting infected. So I think that the policies of the governments are to maximize, that's why I call it the Center for Disease Creation, the CDC. They're going to create the disease, they're going to create the crisis, and they're going to amplify it to make sure the maximum number of people get sick or die.
Look, people have been drinking chlorinated water for a long time, and yes, it has some problems, and yes, it does create some.
Well, you need to remove the chlorine, or you create functional hypothyroidism, which is the biggest crisis.
But this Ebola virus kills 60% of the people, and if you drink chlorinated water, it's going to kill the virus.
Well, yeah, but if you have the alternative of having the Tesla-activated Nutrimedical, you're far better off, because chlorinated water is all well and good, but the problem is that that's for in places where people don't know any different. The problem is the chlorinated water will get, if it's in the water supply, most people are going to be exposed if it's the last, say, week before they get, I call premortal, before they get morbid and die. They're going to be coughing and sneezing and having diarrhea in the toilets in the theater or somewhere public, like the airports. And the virus will persist long enough between bowel movements or between coughing all over the bathrooms where someone can get exposed. And what people should do is take personal protection rather than expecting that the government's going to do anything, or that the airports will do anything, or the public health will prevent people from coming in from these countries, or monitoring to see if they actually are growing the virus long before they get physically sick. So
all we have to do is dump everybody that went through those international airports into a chlorinated pool, and that'll get rid of the Ebola virus that's on the outside of their bodies.
Well, not necessarily. If they breathed it in, it's probably growing in their airways. And what happens is that every day you swallow 1.5 liters of mucus, which comes from your airways, that goes into your GI tract. So the virus probably enters through your respiratory tract and goes down to your GI tract, and that's how it gets through the circulatory systems, through the splanchnic circulation of your liver and bowel, and then to your respiratory tract to cause the bloodborne infection. So
okay, but if you shower in chlorinated water, you're going to get chlorine in your lungs. It's going to kill the virus.
I don't think it's sufficient to it's not sufficient to clear a nascent inoculum of infection. You want to have a level in your blood of an antipathogenic that's going to kill the virus and prevent it from getting a nidus or what's called an inoculum. And that's one of the problems with chlorinated water. It's reduced plagues a lot. That's why, for example, when Britain went to water filtration systems or chlorine, they dramatically, when they went to coffee, when they started having coffee houses and they actually boiled water, that started to massively increase the population of Britain because a lot of people were dying of waterborne diseases and just having coffee houses. So they would boil their water before they have coffee or tea. When they started drinking tea in Britain, it made a major difference in the population. Chlorinated water has helped people, but the problem is chlorinated water also causes heart disease, dementia, functional hypothyroidism, and is a major when it converts in the body to chloramines. It's one of the most powerful stimulants for causing cancer and autoimmune diseases. So I'm not a big. I think we have our pure water system that, at point of use, you want to pull it out with our whole health system, and with our pure water system, you do not want to drink chlorine. You want to have iodinated compounds, or non-fluorinated, non-chlorinated, and non-brominated, because our population is poisoned with chlorine in so many different forms now. It's really bad.
Well, I'm just saying that in a pinch, you could use chlorinated water, draw back.
Oh, yeah, if somebody has nothing else, I mean, but that's going to get rid of... The primary site of infecting people will not be their water supply. The primary site will be going to a public place where someone who's got blood and mucus mixed in their airways because they're about to get violently ill in 24 or 48 hours, are shedding tons of virus, and they have diarrhea with blood in it, or they're coughing and spewing up, and it's in their sinus cavities. They're already getting a disseminated intravascular coagulation disorder, and they're already loaded with tons of virus. They're not going to get it by drinking a glass of water, because it's not going to survive through the water supply with whatever they put it, fluorinated, chlorinated water. It's going to be in close contact with people who've got lots of live virus and droplets. So we like to connect the dots here, and you're really good at doing that. You're a forensic investigator for criminal activity. You've been a former Special Forces. You're what I refer people to if they want to do what I call the massive super prep, where they get a container and put it off to the Cook Islands or head off to some remote place like a southern island in New Zealand. I tell them, talk to John Moore. He'll tell you what you need to get together that's core and basic, and if you've got a big budget, it's going in a giant container, and it's going to get down to your island or your place, so you can fly into your private, air flight, boat plane or whatever. But how will this affect people? What do you think is going to happen? Because I see a sequential disaster that's like a rolling catastrophe that's going to first cut off airlines coming out of Africa and anybody leaving these countries that'll end up in quarantine in Europe and elsewhere. I see it also as doing something really bad in America here, where public health is going to react too late and do some really bad things to people's liberty. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, you're right, Doctor. What they will do will be too little, too late.
Right.
A month ago, all air traffic in and out of those 5 countries in West Africa should have been shut down. That didn't happen. So you can't get a toothpaste back in the tube. That's not going to happen. When this thing hits in the United States in sincerity, which it hasn't yet, there'll be fear. The fires of fear will be fueled by the mass media at the request of the federal government, and they'll be quite successful because Ebola is a very real and very scary thing. And I understand the CDC is already getting multiple calls from people fearful that they have Ebola, which of course I don't here in the United States. But that's the way people are. They're fearful of something that doesn't quite yet exist.
Yeah, we got I call Ebolitis, where they're fearful they're going to get it. The fact is, a lot of people that have the Ebola virus have been exposed or growing it in their body. They're not going to get sick until they have enough viral load that their immune system says, oh my God, the OMG moment immunologically, where there's enough virus, so you get a cytokine storm, your body releases all kinds of complement and cytokines, and all of a sudden your red blood cells, your white cells are going nuts, free radicals are going through the ceiling, you get a cardiac arrhythmia, you're bleeding from every orifice, you're vomiting and spewing blood, you have diarrhea everywhere, you can't eat, you got cramps. You're falling down, disoriented, can't stand, and a day or two or three or a week before that, you're shedding enough virus, you're infecting other people. That's why this particular version of Ebola is so darn dangerous, because yes, the virus may not persist more than 45 minutes to a few hours. We don't know. We don't know if it persists 6 hours. My guess is it probably persists at least 4 hours to 6 hours in a toilet, in a laptop, even in an airport, in a public place on a door handle. It probably persists for a matter of hours. That means you could infect other people there, but also airborne spread or inside a container. I call a flying culture tube. I call an airliner. There's nothing to stop someone from coughing in the back of the plane with multi-drug-resistant TB or Ebola, and that breath being blown in your face 2 minutes later in the front in first class. So where I think this is going to go is they want enough deaths so they can declare medical martial law, and see, the government really is in a panic because the bankers know they're trying to literally start World War III with Russia because they don't have any more cards left in the big international financial game, which is why they made attempts between the Kiev government and the Israelis to kill Putin. I really think that there's two possible explanations of the MH17 flight, and we can visit them again. One is that the Kiev people, which there was a fall of the government soon after that attempt and that knocking out the MH17 flight, but their intelligence information that we know that indicated that Putin's plane was in the area with the Malaysian flight MH17 had to come from Israel. We know that the current president of Israel, of Kiev, the junta government, is a dual Israeli citizen and an oligarch. So we have some real tight connections there, and I think that the fact that we have Israel going crazy in Gaza, we have Putin holding back with doing giant war games, we have Putin basically declaring after the meeting of the Russian government that they're going to have this dead hand automated launch on command sequence, and Putin's now threatened Europe. They're not even going to allow flyovers of European flights over Russian territory. This is a couple steps before they're saying, Europeans, don't start World War III, do not deploy NATO troops, or we're going to strike your cities with nuclear weapons. That's what Russia's saying, because they can't deploy a giant military to attack Europe, but they can sure as hell fry their cities. And that's enough deterrent to tell them, even if they just say, hey, Germans, we want to make a deal, but if you won't play ball, we'll raise the price of gas and oil 3 times higher than you can afford, and your cities will freeze in the dark, and your industry will shut down, and Europe will crash and burn, and the world economy will go into depression. That's going to happen, like, right away. This is not something years away, it's months away now. What do you think, John?
Well, this thing goes down, it's going to be relatively quickly.
Quick and painful.
30 days, 90 days. We won't make it till the first of the year. This thing's going to go. It's going to go rather quickly. And they'll be able to accomplish their goal of causing fear, probably panic, and people being pliable to do whatever they want them to do. If they think that they'll do something to make them safe, if there's a vaccination offered, they will line up and bribe people and pay extra money, do whatever they can to get access to that vaccine. Right. It'll be an absolute pandemonium.
Well, let me explain it in terms of, I remember sitting through a lecture in medical school back 40 years ago, and this is a field operating surgeon in the Civil War. And if you're hit by a piece of a cannonball or a musket ball, which, by the way, the old musket balls and the power of the muskets were much better, higher velocity and we call kinetic force than most of the current munitions. These musket balls could go right through a concrete wall 6 to 8 inches. And if they hit your leg, the field operating surgeon would rush out with an assistant with a pile of coals and hot irons, a piece of leather to stick in your mouth for you to bite. If they luckily had ether or anything to knock you down somewhat, they would actually slap it on your face to kind of make you in a dissociated state. And they literally whip out a scalpel and just start chopping through muscle and flesh and burning it with the hot iron and get a bone saw. And they thought they were really expert if they could whip your leg off in less than 30 seconds.
And then cauterize it.
Now, right. And cauterize it. And then they leave you on the battlefield for somebody to grab a stretcher and stick to what was left of you and grab you back to a surgical tent. Now, that's the kind of disaster I see coming. People don't grasp that if Russia decides to use EMP or their Russian-based cybernetic weapon warfare, because they have a very accurate way of actually shutting down our power grid, and they're more advanced than even the Tianjin army in China or the Iranian army. The Russian scientists and their computer technicians are stellar. If they want to shut down our civilization, they don't need to fire one bullet or one missile or one bioweapon. They can just say, bye-bye, Amerikansky. Russia's been begging to be our allies for almost like 2 centuries. They actually supported America when they're being crushed by the British. What we don't understand is that all the policies of the bankers to make sure that the Tsar Nicholas and his family were destroyed because it was good news for the bankers. It was good news to have Napoleon and false information go back so the Rothschilds could buy up and literally own Britain and the British government. So anywhere since the Napoleonic Wars, all the wars have been banker wars. So we have a catastrophic situation that's brewing now, and we don't have years away. We have months from catastrophe. And I see this Ebola thing is a test. You know, it's like hitting your microphone. This is a test. We're going to test you on Ebola, and we're going to put all the information of your responses into a supercomputer. And then if we want to release a real big weapon on top of Ebola, like a supercharged H7N9 or some other avian or swine flu, then we're really going to clobber you, and we'll shut down the alternative radio. We'll grab your money, and the banks will freeze all bank accounts and ATM machines. We'll set up, constitution-free zones around the coastal areas or around international airports. I mean, I don't think there's any limit. Last week, Obama literally declared through an executive order, if you have a respiratory illness, even if you have no signs of illness or sera, they can quarantine you with other people they think are infected in mass facilities. And that was last week by the Abominator. Last week. We didn't invent this. We don't have to invent the news. The craziness is already out there. So your comments, Ann and John, when we come back, we need to hear more because I am freaked out. If you're not freaked out, you're not paying attention. This is bad. So, John, we have a laundry list. We have the U.S. F-18 airstrikes now took place in Iraq. Scheduled, quote, to stop genocide. I don't know how you stop genocide by genociding. He said, you're doing enough genociding. We need to do some genocide here. There's not enough genocide going around. You're just inefficient. We'll drop daisy cutter bombs on our former allies with the Shiites under Maliki. We'll make sure that those Islamists pay. Which Islamists? Oh, the ones that are not on our side today. Last year they were on our side, so they're okay. So we have ISIS, and now we have this proven ISIS executioner that's a Mossad agent. We have proof of it. His name is al-Bakr al-Baghdadi, and his actual name is Elliot Shimon, or Mossad-trained operative Shimon Elliot Shimon, a.k.a. Baghdadi, was born to 2 Jewish parents and is a Mossad agent. Guess what? This is so twisted, but it's what's going on in your world. John, where do you predict this going? And because I see, by the fall, I see the bottom falling out of the economy. Not permanently, but temporarily so they can get what they want. I see biological terrorism so that the airports, at least coming out of Africa, will be closed to normal transport. I see the European economy crashing as Russia amps up the price of oil and gas, so Germany squeals like a stuck pig and screams, especially now after kicking out the CIA operatives who were spying on Germany in every possible way, pissing off, excuse my English, the current chancellor, Angela Merkel. She's just like beside herself, upset about the fact that this has gone on. So what do you think is up next? Because I don't think this is all going to be a good fall. I think this is going to be ugly.
I agree, Doctor. In fact, just an hour ago, I'm at the end of what's called an MOA, Military Operational Area, which is outlined on the aeronautical charts in purple. And there's F-15s working out over my home just a couple of hours ago, which I haven't seen that in many months. So the U.S. military is getting ready for something. Russia is obviously massing troops and tanks along the border there with Ukraine. This thing could spin wildly out of control very, very quickly. And all it's going to take is some second lieutenant at 2 o'clock in the morning pushing the wrong button, and we're off to the races. So it's a very dangerous time. We live in very dangerous times.
Yeah, the Russian bombers have even done incursions. I have reports that Russian strategic nuclear bombers conducted at least 16 incursions into the northwest United States air defense identification zone over the past 10 days. That means Tu-795 Russian Bear H bombers with nuclear weapons to fry our cities are prompting us to scramble our U.S. jets on several occasions just over the last week and a half. And Obama, smirking idiot that he is, continuing to play golf and taking more vacations, and Congress is off now to have a summer vacation. It's like, are you kidding? I don't think the Russian government is taking a vacation. They were called back, and there's not a peep coming out of them because they know this is very serious. But yet, dealing with Ebola, dealing with the European situation, dealing with Ukraine, dealing with saying to Israel, don't bomb them. I saw a comedic article where it showed a picture of a box of bombs, and Obama was writing a letter to Netanyahu saying, please, Mr. Netanyahu, do not bomb such and such. And when they ran out of weapons, the Israelis got our stockpile because we have stored in Israel. They didn't even have to ask. We just say, here's the key, go get it. And I'm thinking, how can Obama criticize them bombing the heck out of the Gazans on the one hand, and on the other hand, get as many weapons as you want, kill as many people as you want, invade as many countries as you want, even if it eventually results in killing every Israeli, because when 200,000 missiles come flying in, there's nothing Iron Dome and Patriot 2 system will do to stop it from killing them all. That's what's insane. So if you're listening in Israel, get the heck out, because you're going to die. When this gets flying, and it could be 2 years, could be 5 years, it could be soon. My guess is the peace treaty is going to happen because things are going to get so hairy, and then about 3.5 years into this peace treaty, all hell is going to break loose, and a lot of people, especially in the state of Israel, are going to die when this war really gets ripping.
Well, ISIS wants to go into Lebanon and therefore attack Israel. ISIS is ready to do that.
ISIS wants to go into Lebanon to attack Israel from Lebanon?
Yeah.
Well, that's a way of actually justifying Israeli super aggression. Most people don't realize Hamas was actually trained by Shin Bet and by the Israelis, was actually invented by the Israelis. Most people know Hamas was not by itself; it was trained and invented by the Israelis. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, isn't that ugly?
Yeah,
by Shin Bet, the internal forces in Israel, and by the Israeli Mossad. So, people say, oh, no, they didn't do that. Yes, they did, actually. So if ISIS is moving in and we've got a guy that's a proven Mossad operative that's one of the senior driving forces in ISIS, we know that they want Israel to... Israel right now basically says, we want to do a nuclear war now. We want a biological war now. We don't want to wait till the Muslim nations get stronger. We don't want to wait till the former Soviet Union gets stronger. We want to nuke everybody, including people in Moscow and Leningrad and anywhere else. We call St. Petersburg, it's called now. We want everybody that's our enemy. And that, by the way, includes European cities. The Israelis aren't just going to nuke Muslim cities. They have intentions of nuking cities in Turkey, Istanbul, and cities in Europe if they don't go along with the Israeli program. So the Israelis are nuts, and they're ready to pull the trigger like real soon, and we're supplying them with the weapons. That's what's even more insane. Or we know that they're also getting illegal nuclear material from Japan and elsewhere. That's why a lot of this stuff happened in Japan. We have some pretty good proof that the Japanese earthquake that occurred about 5-6 years ago, this is before 3/11, was an artificial quake that was actually triggered off because it was some bad dialogue back and forth with Japan and the Rothschilds about setting up nuclear material transferred to the state of Israel because they couldn't get it from us. So they got it from Japan. And when Japan wasn't coughing it up, they hit them with an earthquake that actually cracked right underneath one of the reactors, and it was on another part of Japan on the west side of the northern island. It wasn't near the Fukushima prefecture. So People need to know there's a lot of really bad stuff going on here, and Israel has absolutely no ethics whatsoever, and America goes along with anything Israel wants to do. Anything. Your comments, John and Ann.
Well, that's the track record as we go along with whatever Israel wants, and I don't see that changing.
We need to prepare. What else should we do, Ann and John? Because we see Ebola emerging. We see them in the background. The WHO has declared that the SARS beta coronavirus is not a problem. Don't worry about it. H7N9 is percolating in the background in Asia. H5N1 percolating. Swine flu coming up from Central and South America with these illegal teenagers. Lots of stuff happening, along with the very real danger that the Europeans are going to crash the European economy by putting sanctions in Russia. Now Russians blocked all agriculture coming in from Canada, Europe, and elsewhere. This is really going to get nuts by the fall. I think that we better batten down the hatches, rather prepared economically to deal with a situation that's going to get out of control here real soon.
I think that the yo-yo principle applies. You're on your own.
Yeah.
You can't expect
like
the
that,
government to protect you from these things.
Well, actually, they're going to protect you from your common sense. They're going to protect you from... In fact, they declared it, interestingly, I talked to my about-to-be daughter-in-law, that she was telling me that she was reading, this is just regular reading, that if you have more than 2 weeks of food or other supplies, you're considered a hoarder. And actually, according to the Department of Homeland Security, you're classified as a potential terrorist, so they can put you on these watch lists. So, and that's been, by the way, in Patriot Act 1 since Bush's era. So it wasn't invented by the idiot Obama, it was by the idiot Bush and the people behind him, because he's doing his little exercise in the afternoon to have his nappies. And Obama and Bush and Clinton were all burnt-out cocaine addicts. So we have to realize these are just the Actors Guild of Presidents. The maniacs and the Satanists behind them are making all these orders and rules, and they don't give a damn about a constitutional republic called America. They want to kill you. They want to make sure that you can't protect yourself, you can't protect your family. They even tried to declare that AK-47s are all illegal now. This is another side move by Obama. It gets more nuts every week, and you can't believe these things actually are happening, but they make every possible move to hog-tie you so you can't protect yourself financially, physically, food-wise, or anything in any way. But you can't. You need to just say, to heck with you, government. I'm going to protect me and my family and my community from fire, from plague, from Ebola, from stupidity, from economic catastrophe. Just get ready, because I think we're going to go through what I call birth pang this fall. It's not the end of the end, as it says, like Jesus in Matthew 24. This is the beginning of the end, not the end of the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Doctor. This is Liberty Man signing off.
Yeah, thelibertyman.com and Homeland-Defense4You.com. Thanks, John Moore and Ann Morrison. You have your regular show from 6 to 7 a.m. Central Time on Republic Radio. We'll be back on Monday with John in hour number 3 talking about preparedness. And take care, take action. As I say, don't believe a thing we say. Research it yourself. Once you own the truth, do something. Don't sit in the middle of the freeway waiting to think that someone else is going to fix it for you. Forget it.